wearing your Miss Universe outfit? Miss Universe on Salida Style. Tell us about Miss Universe. How did you become Miss Universe?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I started out competing locally. So I was Miss Paulsbo, which is the town I was from, and then I was Miss Washington, and then I won Miss World America, and then I was able to go to the Miss Universe pageant and compete and win there. So I won last August. So I'm still in my current year of getting to have my title for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's amazing. You don't have a manager. You just do it all yourself.
No, I don't have a manager. I do all my stuff myself. I'm a little bit unusual as far as beauty queens go or models in the fact that I don't have formal training. Most people start when they're itty bitty and have someone, coaching and teaching them the entire time. I've had a one-off walking lesson here and there, but other than that, for the most part, it's just been sort of self-taught and stuff. So yeah, I'm a little bit different in that aspect. And no, I don't have a manager. I set up and schedule everything myself.
So you're saying you're natural?
Yes.
Do you believe in dinosaurs?
Yes. Dinosaurs are awesome. I wish we had T-Rexes running around, to be honest. I think that would be totally awesome.
I'd go for the Triceratops. They seem nicer.
They are nicer, that is true.
Is T-Rex your favorite?
Well, I just kind of think, I don't know, I like how fast, I don't know, I have a lot of respect for when there's sort of a predator animal, just the amount of fear that's established with that, and then the kind of the control thing, it's always intriguing to me. It's kind of like how house cats remind me of little tiny versions of lions. If they were really big, you wouldn't want them around because it'd be dangerous, but at a little small mini version, that'd be fun. So I think if there was a little T-Rex that was pocket size, that would be kind of fun, cat size, in comparison. So it's not gonna eat you, but it's get a little T-Rex running around causing mayhem in your house. I don't know.
Gonna bite you if you pick them off.
The velociraptor is actually the size of a chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made him big in the movie just for special effects.
Oh, okay.
How did the T-Rex become the apex predator with those little tiny arms?
I know, right? I've always wondered that too. It just seems so off balance, but I mean, I don't know.
They're pretty much like chicken wings, really. That's how they have feathers.
Totally.
They might have had feathers.
But do you believe that there's dinosaurs in China right now?
I have no idea. I've never heard about that. Are there dinosaurs in China right now?
Yep.
Ooh, what kind?
Tyrannosaurus rexes.
Because you can believe everything you see on the internet.
Well,
we had a couple of guests talk about it.
Interesting. Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your journey over this. I mean, you became into your titles during COVID. That had to be very strange compared to, doing modeling work and being in beauty pageants before the coronavirus.
Yeah, no, it was very different because then all of a sudden it was instead of going in person, to the children's hospital to go read kids' books and play, it was this. You'd be on a video chat and then have little kids there and you're reading a book. And it's weird because it's not the same. You're reading a book and you're I'm the only one in the room kind of thing. It's a lot more awkward. So I think definitely the volunteer work was a little bit trickier because of things like that. Just logistically, it winded up being very much so mostly online stuff and promoting different organizations that way. As far as the title holders in 2019, most of them ended up keeping it through 2020 because most of the pageants didn't actually happen that year. So it's, right. I think one of the last times that happened was during World War II. Typically they're every single year. And then just because of COVID and the restrictions, it's how are you going to have a pageant when people have masks on and can't travel and all of this stuff?
Right.
And, I mean, I still traveled during COVID. I was one of those crazy people still going all over the place. But I know that for the most part, a lot of people did not do traveling during that time. So
I
But
want to
yeah, it
see
was
a beauty
very
pageant.
different in that aspect.
I want to see that beauty pageant where everybody has masks on. That'd be funny.
No,
That would be right.
but a lot of the times you did. So you like had this mask on, and then you're like talking in front of a judge, and they're like, "Okay, take it off, and we'll put the judges in another room and do a camera thing like this." Which again has like such a different feel than like having people 2 feet away from you, like staring at you. You know, it's just. I mean, I know you're still looking at me, but it's a very different feel. It's like the
7 feet
intimidation
away,
factor goes
right?
way down when the people are like on the camera versus right next to you. So I think was a very different dynamic for sure.
Damn. Now take off your mask. Show us what you got.
Yeah.
Right? Let's see if you're pretty under there. Just kidding.
Such
Set
a
up the
strange
town.
dynamic we went through with like people couldn't see facial expressions. And, you know, I have a kindergarten little boy right now. So he was younger than these kids going through it. But I have a friend who's a kindergarten teacher, or she's a second grade teacher. And she said that most of these kids have a really, or a lot of her kids had a really hard time pronouncing words as they were reading because they couldn't see the teacher's face, so they couldn't see the mouth thing going on. And yeah, what a weird universe these youngins, well, all of us have gone through, but especially these youngins. Hey, welcome to life. It's weird.
Right? Yeah, my twins started kindergarten during COVID, so the first half of their year they were at home, and then kind of opened up and they started letting people go back to school, and there was the same thing. Like they had such a hard time understanding stuff because so much of how people pronounce is being able to look at their
Read the
their
lips.
face, and especially if it's something new, or to be able to like hear something, and it's often so muffled with a mask, and especially a little kid who's being
Right.
intimidated to be at school and speaking extra quiet or something like that. So no, it definitely was a weird experience. I think probably for all of the kids, especially being like, "What's happening?"
So you have twins.
I do. Yeah, I have 9-year-old twin boys, and then I have an 11-year-old son as well. So I have a boy
Wow.
house.
Yeah, wow. Your life is full for sure, especially with the kids. But now that you're Miss Universe, that's intense.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I always joke that like at the bus stop, people could either see me dressed kind of like this or in sweatpants, because it's like if I have an interview or something I'm doing, I'm all dressed up, getting the kids on the bus and then heading out. Or, you know, my kids play year-round football, so sometimes I'm like grabbing them to go play football, so I'm in sweatpants. So it's just always like everyone's like, you never know what you're gonna get. You're either like super fancy or super not, and I'm like, well, you kind of dress for
Yeah.
the role that you have to take care of at that moment.
Right, right. Either mama role or Miss Universe role.
Yeah.
So I was wondering about your charity work. In this position you're in, you go to get like children's hospitals and events like that. How does that take away? I don't know if you have another work life, but I'm thinking of what it takes to do that. Is there somebody funding your time? Because it's certainly not like the hospital's paying you to be there. I wouldn't think. There's got to be some sort of endowment, I would suspect. Otherwise, I mean, doing charity as a beauty queen has to be hard. They got to pay some bills, right?
No, actually, they don't pay anything. So I do it, and I own my own practice. So that's how I'm allowed to have a tax practice. So that's how I'm able to work it in, as I can set up my own schedule. So like most recently, I went and judged the Future Business Leaders of America. So I took off the half day and went out and judged regionals out there. Not comped, but I mean, I think it has a lot of value teaching kids how to speak and communicate and set
Sure.
up leaders for success. So in my mind, I look at it as you're investing in the community around you, right? Like the better off everybody is and the more access to education and tools and opportunity, it generally flows back in the community and is better, because a lot of times kids in those programs are from impoverished areas where they don't have somebody that knows how to teach them how to do a good interview or what to dress or say. And that can really hinder them from getting a good economic job in the future. So I think it can help level the playing field by doing stuff like that. And then another thing that I do is I'm on the board of Central Park Angels. So it's a nonprofit that's doing humanitarian aid in Ukraine. So they're sending in medical supplies and food and water, and then they do evacuations for refugees. So a lot of that I can do from home, board meetings, but they also send me out to go speak at a lot of public events for them. So none of that's paid at all. But again, I just feel like
Do they pay for your plane tickets at least?
no. They don't pay for anything.
What?
I cover it all.
Wow.
But the way I look at that as well is like the world's not, I mean, it's big, but it's not that big, right? Like what happens in one spot
Yeah.
has impact here. It impacts our supply chain, it impacts our friends. It's all connected.
Mhm.
And so in my mind, if I can do something to like go get cases of formula to help babies over in Ukraine whose hospital is bombed and their parents are dead, that's like part of helping the world and giving back and making a difference. And so I just consider that my donation of my time and of my resources to do those things, because even if I wasn't a beauty queen, I find that something that's very important. I just am now in a position where people care a little bit more what I say and what I go do. But volunteering has always been something I've done. Like I've spent most of my childhood summers in Africa doing volunteer work. So it's not, and something I fully funded myself then as well. So it's not something that's like, I just won a pageant and now I'm showing up and volunteering. I've always had a lifestyle of volunteering. I just now have a sparkly crown and a sash to go with it.
Well, I would suspect and suggest that that's a good part of why you are Miss Universe, because I mean, shoot, the world needs people who are able to take their means to help people who don't have means or very, they're not in the same position, and being able to, that the whole you reap what you sow, sowing beautiful seeds to help people out it'll pay. I mean, it's whatever you call it, biblical karma. When you help somebody out, it comes back sometimes in a tenfold way.
Yeah, I think so. Like I've never felt like my time was wasted volunteering in a soup kitchen or going and reading to sick kids or doing anything on board meetings. I've always felt like even if I never see the results, it still feels like I'm doing something within my capacity that I can to give back. And everybody can do something different. Everybody's capacity is different. I don't think everybody needs to do the same thing. But for me, it's very fulfilling. And it's also important to me that I leave a good example for my children. And so part of me like telling them that they need to, it's really easy for kids to be self-absorbed. It's true. So part of me like getting them to think outside of that is like showing them how I'm thinking outside of me and not being self-absorbed. So it's sort of like I want to teach them. And so I'm teaching them by example. And oftentimes I'll bring them with me to charity events. Like I did I work also with Global Dignity, which helps. Basically, it's worldwide in 80 countries. It's a nonprofit, and it helps basically teach kids through curriculum how to be kind and respectful, which I know sounds super basic, but there's a lot of adults who nobody has explained to them, like how to treat others with dignity and respect, right? Regardless of what your viewpoint is on different things. And so there was all these classrooms from around the world, and I pulled my kids out of school that day and I kept them home, and I had them join on the video call so they could see all these kids all over the world that were learning about dignity and respect and the value of that. Just because sometimes, I mean, I think school's wonderful, but sometimes I think there's life lessons like that that's worth missing a day, because now you can see the impact of, hey, this is what mom's been working on this project. This is what it's doing. This is why it's important. This is why you should care. So that kind of thing.
You're a good mama.
Oh, thank you.
You should be
I
the
appreciate that.
president of the United States of the universe, the whole universe.
It might be a little better than the options we have in this universe.
Miss Universe, her job is to save the world single-handed.
You're sweet.
It's amazing. I don't know how to do it. But will you tell us a little bit about the different universes of Miss Universe? There's Miss Universe, then there's Miss Earth, and then there's Miss America, and it goes down, Miss Colorado. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's several big pageants, and they're a lot of the differences are what you have to do to qualify for them, right? So like the Miss Earth pageant is based a lot on doing things that are good for the planet, right? So everybody's platform has to have something to do with like your connection to the earth, like you're doing an ocean conservation project, or you're like trying to help do something with global warming or something. You have to pick a platform that's based on that. And then those start out at city, state, and then national competitions for that. Same thing with the Universe pageant, except for they cleared it off starting for next year, but they have an age restriction, right? So you could only do it from age 18 to like 25, and you could never have been married and never had kids, like the MISS one. And they have a lot of like morality clauses with it, like you can't drink, you can't like get caught doing drugs, you lose your title. So there's that one, and then there's the one I did, which the MS Universe one, where obviously I'm not 25 and I have children, as we've discussed. So there's not an age cap on that one, right? So it could be people competing from age 18 up to like 86 or whatever age you feel like showing up there. So it's a full gamut. And there's not the morality clause. I'm allowed to have cocktail. But it's a little bit more based off of like, they also judge off different things too. So most of them have like a bikini portion, an evening gown, and then a question. But the difference is some of the pageants allow you to do questions where you know the question ahead of time, and some of them surprise you with a question. So that's a difference. And some of the ones that surprise you with a question will ask political questions, which is kind of crazy because
you got to choose a side or, take a stance in front of people where it's like, I'm just doing philanthropy and trying to be my best me. But if you sit on the opposite side of somebody, they may... Interesting. Just chiming in.
Exactly. It makes it very tricky because you don't know who the judges are. Like if somebody asks you a very political question, you don't know, what side of the aisle that person sits on, and that could cost you the thing. So that's how the MISS Universe one and Earth one works with their questions. There, you don't get them. Earth, you get them ahead of time. Universe, you don't. In mine, you don't get it ahead of time, and it's 5 minutes of questions. It's not just a question. But that being said, in the one I competed in, they don't do anything with politics or religion. So whatever question you're asked is going to be not that, which I kind of appreciate, again, for the same reason that it's like really easy to alienate somebody because you have no idea who the judges are. Another difference is some pageants have like 2 or 3 judges. Some can have like, I think mine had almost 29 different judges on it.
Cow.
So it's
like 29 people judging if you are the one they want to be the Miss
yeah, so that can make a big difference between the pageant systems as well. And some of them do, like the MISS one does put you up in a hotel, or not a hotel, in an apartment in New York for the year. And they do fund all of the charity work that the people do in that pageant. But that's the only one that funds it and does that. The rest of them, the beauty queens that are doing philanthropy, are doing it out of their own pocket. But a lot of times there will be people that will sponsor them, like businesses that say, hey, plug our whateverness, and then we'll help fund part of it for you. So sometimes people do that as well.
Well, so you have to be a fundraiser for them to go help you out?
Sometimes I don't do a lot of sponsorships in that way. Like I let people that are like dress designers give me outfits to wear. And so a lot of the times I'll be wearing a custom design dress somewhere, and then it's easy because then when someone's like, who are you wearing? I'm like, I don't have a custom one on right now, but if I were at an event and I could say the name of the designer and then tag them in all the photos, and that would be sufficient. So it's just easier for me to do it that way because it's less work than if it's like an insurance company and now I have to do like all this promo for them. It's not really natural and it doesn't make sense with what I'm doing. Whereas if it's something I'm wearing, like a lot of times I have makeup sponsors or hair or outfit, it's much easier to just drop who I'm wearing or who did my look versus having to do something that's not super like part of the flowy conversation. So I pay for all my stuff myself, and I know a lot of beauty queens do as well.
You should get a big sponsor like Disney or the Eiffel
Nike.
Tower.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I just don't even know how you would go about getting one of those.
Statue of Liberty.
It's so hard to actually get a person. There's so many like gatekeepers all the way down on all that stuff.
Right.
That's why you need a manager that could do it for you.
I probably do need a manager. Maybe that is what I'm doing wrong, because I don't have a manager.
I'll call Disney. I can't make any promises. I'll email Walt Disney in a seance some sort.
So
Love
this
it.
is how good
Okay.
Brian is. He was able to connect with you and a lot of the other bands and artists we've interviewed and musicians we've interviewed, he would be good PR. And he's the best guitar player I've ever met.
Well, there you go. Sounds like the man for the job.
Thank you. I'm flattered.
You're
Thank you. Let's talk about something real.
Okay.
We need to ask the questions, the cutting questions. When do you think that we will have flying cars?
Ooh. I think sooner rather than later, because now that we've got the whole like vehicles that can park themselves and drive, my only concern is this though, is like sometimes like the sensors on stuff. So for example, like my car will be has little lights on the mirrors and it will beep at me if I'm trying to turn and it thinks that there's another vehicle there, right? Which is great most of the time, but there's a certain road that when you're going, it's at such a hard turn and you're parked waiting for the light. My car beeps at me the whole time because it thinks I'm going to get into an accident. I'm not. I'm in the right lane. I'm not actually moving, but it's because it's a turn. So I think that like it's going to be a little bumpy at first because there's just things like that logistically that once you have a car that's able to do something, there's all these real life problems that come into play. But I think it'll definitely be within my lifetime. I think it sounds a little bit terrifying, but I could totally see that being like telling my great grandkids, yeah, back in the day, I had to drive my own car. Like,
with wheels, and we had phones you had to hold.
yeah, we had to walk uphill both ways in the snow for 5 miles, like that whole thing, but like with cars. So I think so. I think if we can send people up in rocket spaces to outer space and do stuff, why can't we have a flying car?
Right. My fourth grade teacher, Mr. Browning, told me that by the time I was 30, that we'd all be driving flying cars. I think he was a little bit like George Orwell in the fact that his predictions of 1984 were just, maybe 40 years early. So maybe by the time I'm 70.
Right? It's not an exact science. So I feel like, yeah.
And now a question from the American Psychological Association. If Albert Einstein had a type 1 personality disorder, what would it most likely be?
What is type 1 personality disorder?
It's basically schizophrenia, schizotypal, or schizoid.
I don't know what the difference is.
I was going to guess autistic, but that's not one of the ones you offered up. Just because really smart people that are good at, I mean, I know math wasn't his favorite, but like really smart people that can focus on something like that usually are also like a little bit less socially charming or well equipped. I don't know. I don't think schizophrenia would fit for him just because
I would think
people that have
autism
that, and based off that, I think it would be too hard to be that organized with the stuff that he came up with for that.
Yeah, that's why they say schizoid.
I really love hanging out with autistic people. I have some very close friends who are autistic, and they speak and communicate and see the world in what I feel is an advanced language or vision. They're not so simple as to love and hate, and that my autistic friends are some of my favorite people in the world because they're fascinating. They twist my brain up.
Absolutely, yeah. And usually they're like incredibly brilliant too. Like a lot of your like very technical jobs that are hard and challenging, they can just like boom, 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 go in there and do it. That's why I would have thought that he would have had something like that because he was very smart and brilliant. So I don't know though. I'm not a psychologist by any level. So
they say schizoid because he does not like celebrity, although he is one, but he doesn't really want to be part of the party. Very withdrawn, but capable mentally.
Yeah. But I think also a lot of times, like people that have done something really amazing and wonderful, might not necessarily always like the limelight too. And so I think that can be
Yeah,
an
right.
interpretation as well, as people being like, oh, they're reacting weird or they're not super social or that. Just like, no, this person's dream wasn't to be like, a celebrity on the cover of a magazine. They were doing their thing in their jam. Like that's a whole nother element. So I always think it's a little bit like, without personally knowing somebody, it's a little bit tricky because you don't know if that person is just a little bit of an introvert and this is just a lot for them to take on and they were just doing what they were naturally gifted and worked really hard at. So I think that's like a
Yeah.
little bit of a tricky point as well, because it's a lot when everybody's paying attention to you and expecting you to constantly like create something like incredible
Mhm.
and earth shattering, and that, like, I feel like that would be a lot of pressure.
How do you deal with the pressure of celebrity being Miss Universe?
That's a good question.
Well, for me, I always try and make time to like relax and be by myself so I can recharge. Cause like it's really fun to go to events. I'll go out, I'll go speak at an event and I'll probably get pictures with hundreds of people, right? So we go out, I speak at the event, I'm in front of everybody, do my thing, and then everyone's taking pictures, saying hi, doing all that stuff. It's super fun. But after like, if I'm there for 4 or 5 hours, I want to go sit in my hotel room and just like be by
Mhm.
myself for a little bit, because
Decompress.
it's so it can get overwhelming having everybody like recognize you and like being, yeah, pictures. Like it's fun and I'm super excited and grateful and want to be kind and respectful to anyone that's interested. But for me, it's a balance of being out around people and a balance of being able to pull back into either my house or my
Mhm.
hotel and just have some time with like either my kids who think I'm just mom, or like one of my close friends where they're like, whatever, you're just our friend. So sometimes I think you have to have that balance of like going out and being what everybody expects you to be and going home and being able to just like
Do
be you
human
without
life.
all these extra expectations.
Right. I think balancing
I think
celebrity would be
balancing
really
celebrity
hard.
really.
I would never want to be famous in the fact that like if I can't go into public with my, because I have a handful of kids. So if I went into public and they're like being taken pictures of like the Hollywood people, that would make me feel so uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. Not just for me being on stage, but also like the safety of my children.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of celebrities will live in specific areas. Like there's a high-end town near me where there are a lot of famous people that live, and everybody in the community makes a point of not like, yeah, everybody will know that like, and so when other celebrities come into town that aren't from here, I think a lot of times they're surprised at how like nonchalant everybody is. Like, oh yeah, George Clooney's in town. Nobody's gonna go up and take his picture. Nobody's gonna say anything. They're gonna act like you're just like everybody else. That's this tiny little bubble that does that. And so they do have a lot of celebrities in and out of there all the time. And I think that that is why, is because it's sort of taboo in that community. Like you would kind of be publicly shamed if you would up and
You
were like,
get
oh my God,
shunned
George
if you
Clooney,
do
let me
that.
take a picture with you. Everybody would be like, what are you doing? He is having dinner, leave him alone. So I think that probably a lot of those people kind of gravitate towards places like that unless they want the attention, like they're, releasing some new movie or doing something where they're wanting to drum up press and media. But when they want to just like be and live or take their kids out or do something, I would imagine that as much as possible, you try and find places like that so you can just, as much as possible, just be you.
Yeah, you need the silence as much as you do the noise and equal parts of each, stillness and chaos.
Exactly.
Miss Universe. Bow tie, long tie, or like scarf like this. What do you
Ooh,
like?
it depends
What
on
do
the
you like to
occasion.
see? Uh,
So like if if it's something like a really, really formal thing, I think a bow tie is kind of fun. If you're just going to a nice restaurant, I think a scarf is better. And I think if you're going to something that's like for a business meeting, a tie is better. So I think it just depends on where you're going and what you're doing.
you heard it here first. That's how you do it. Okay, one more question.
Okay.
High heels or no? High heels or flat?
Yes. Always high heels.
Both. Okay.
I agree. I wear high heels on a regular day.
You know what? It's
I'd prefer to go
my kids
barefoot.
take them all the time from me because I'll like be out there. I'll practice walking, so I like walk up and down my hall, practice my walk in my high heels, and so they'll like go get them, and all the little neighborhood kids will have all my shoes on and be like following me along like little ducks. It's kind of funny, but it's harder to walk in heels than if you've not tried walking in them. It's much harder than you might think.
And we need to be saved in Salida, Colorado. So, this universe, we need your blessing. What's your one word of advice for Salida, Colorado?
My one word of advice would probably be don't be afraid of failure. So if you want something, go after and do it. Because if you're not going to at least chase after it and try, you've already failed. So it doesn't matter what the issue is. Like if it's a situation around you or whatever, and you feel strongly about it, do something. Don't be afraid to fail, because you taking some small action might have a big ripple effect and make a big difference somewhere else.
So you may find out about 30, 42 lives later.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got a final question for you as well. I would suspect in your role, like everyone who's of notoriety gets a lot of amazing positive comments, but also like the hate comments, the keyboard warrior nonsense. How do you deal with that? Like when I do something public, sometimes it's awesome, and then like 24%, 2% of like and it's like, dang, I tend to forget the awesome 88% or 98%, but I dwell on those 2% of people who are like, hey, you suck or whatever. How do you deal with that stuff? Because you're a big public figure. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. Like, I delete posts every day, like comments on my posts every single day, and I get messages every single day. And yes, like you said, the majority of them are sweet and kind and nice, but there are some mean people out there, and I'm like, I don't even know you, and this is very aggressive and whatever. And at first I kind of took it to heart, and then I had this idea one of the times where somebody was telling me that I was like super ugly and I was fat and I had no business being a beauty queen. It was just like it was like a paragraph, like went on and on. And I was like, this person has a weird image as their profile picture. It's not them. So I went and did some digging and found what they actually looked like. And I was like, oh, you're like 400 pounds, probably living in your mom's basement. And after that, every time now that I get a comment, I just ignore it. Like I delete it because I don't want it on my feed for other people to see, because I want to be like positive and focus on good things. And like I would never leave a negative comment on somebody else. But I always just try and think about like, okay, well, where's this person coming from that they're saying this, right? Like maybe, because if it's not anybody I know, like we don't have a personal grievance, right? You're a complete stranger saying something about, or criticizing something that you have no idea about. I almost feel bad for them in a way, because I feel like, are you trying to get my attention to interact with me? Are you just like unhappy with your life in general? Or like, so I don't really take it to heart anymore, because I don't feel like it has anything to do with me. I think it has to do with something they're feeling and experiencing at their point in life. And I wish them nothing but good thoughts and well wishes, but I don't think I have any connection with it, right? It's like the whole thing about little kids being super good at school and then coming home and being like, rah. Why? Because at home is a safe place, right? So you can express those things when you're really mad about the kid that was sitting behind you that was poking you all day. And so you get mad at mom when you come home, but you're not really mad at mom. She's got fresh cookies for you. You're mad because of that kid, and you felt like you couldn't say that. So I feel like most of those kind of comments that you get that are from complete strangers that have nothing to do with anything are them lashing out, feeling like it's a safe space. And so I don't ever reply to them. I just delete the comments, and in my mind, I just try and send them a little bit of positive energy and well wish, because I don't think I'm sure all the comments that you get that are negative have absolutely nothing to do with you. It's something going on in that person. I mean, it's hard to separate that. I get that. But for me, I have found that to be the best way is just like, this is not connected to me. So
Well, and the thought of, hurt people hurt people.
exactly.
So when they're hurt, they tend to project. And that projection for me, as I've looked at, and I don't get people that look at you, what you're working with, but when people project on me, it's a little bit like, oh, wow. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was like, ow, dang it. But now I send up a prayer. I just say, you know what? Bless those people who are in a hurt state. Because I'm glad I'm not in that place anymore where I'm attacking other people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
I have. Yeah. I think I've been on about 100 podcasts. I love them. I think they're so fun.
Oh, this 101?
This would be 101.
That's very timely. 101 is a good number.
It is a good number.
Beginning and new beginnings.
Wow. I mean, will you put our podcast on your web page or your social media profile?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share it on. If you give it to me in a format or something I can share, I'll put it on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok gladly.
Sandra, Miss Universe, on the podcast.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Cassandra, for president, first woman on the moon.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, hey, have a good rest of your afternoon.
You too. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Bye for now.